Alrighty, week 3 on deck, and I probably say this more than I need to, but I will say it again, I guess, is that it's a really important week in our class, and I have a couple things to go over before I get into the detail of how this week will work. But just know that Monday is kind of our normal day, which is you have a code along, which I do have a new requirement if you happen to miss it, if you happen to have missed it. And I actually implemented it starting this week. Now, when I say this week, I don't know why. I probably shouldn't do this, but I mean in week 2 because I record a week ahead. But I will go over that, and then I will get into the schedule to talk about what is and how it works for this week. Because I totally understand that when you hear the code review, you may have ideas about what that means. So I want to walk through that, but I also just want to help you understand how it works. Okay. So let me switch over. And so here's our week 3 items. Like I told you, that new requirement that's setting there. So make sure whenever he's asked, and when I say he, meaning Andrew, when he says, I have this is a coding challenge, you do need to be stopping, attempting the code, leaving your code in place, and then writing his code after because I want to see how well you're progressing. And honestly, I feel like that's one of the key things that I see students jump over sometimes is they don't take that time. So that is the requirement from here on out. Anytime there's a code challenge, and it's okay. I'm not going to mark you off if you didn't get the code right, but I at least want you to do it. Okay. So let me talk about this because it's kind of last week. I really tried to figure out a video how to say but let me just maybe condense this down into this. I get that there are different systems for this class, right? There's Canvas, there's Zoom, and there's Discord. And some of you are taking my 82 web introduction to web development, and so this is a little bit of a repeat, but in general, here's how it rolls or how I would hope it goes is that if you have a question for me directly, and oftentimes that's about your grade. Now, some students will ask me on Discord, and when you ask me there in front of everybody in the channel, it's like asking me in front of the class, which I mean, I'm not going to say don't, but generally students I've noticed want to talk about that in a more one on one. So you might start by emailing me through Canvas, right? You have a question about your grade, but do know that I leave comments on everything I grade. And you can see that by looking at my grade. And on the other side of the actual grade, there's a little icon that indicates like a little chat thread window. And if you click on that, you will see. And I've been having ongoing conversations on Canvas with students once they submit and I grade. And I will say it again, the importance of submitting work early is that I will grade it. And if you miss something, you can redo it. Okay, so that's Canvas, and it's where it's most of of all the instruction you get, the video, how you submit. So it's probably what I'd consider our main system. So every day of the week, I have an office hour. And that office hour, which by the way, you're going to see again in a minute when I start talking about the signups for the code review, those will follow my office hours. So but those are in Zoom. And so I want you to just understand that, of course, office hours are optional. You don't have to come, but I definitely recommend you do come if you're struggling or if you just want to chat about some code or web development or whatever, right? It's like my office hour. I think sometimes it's hard for students because maybe they don't understand that office hours are really us making ourselves available to you. But the truth is, I generally will make myself available to you if I can, based on my schedule and what I'm doing and my commitments. But I do have those set hours. Those are on Zoom. Discord. Discord is meant for you to ask questions, not just of me, but to anybody in the class. So really try to resist that temptation to tag me and ask me a question because other students will think, well, Rio's going to answer that. I don't have to. And they may know the answer. Honestly, there'll be I've always noticed there's a group of students who work ahead and often can give great feedback to other students. So, just FYI, those are the three systems we use. How do you use them? Please don't reach out to me directly on Discord for reasons that I don't want to get into about, because the campus controls is Canvas, the campus, FCC campus controls Canvas and Zoom. But Discord I do on my own. And it really isn't intended for you and I to have conversation, because really we want those conversations to be tracked by the institution. But when we're having a group discussion, those are fine out there. Okay, so just that. All right, I talked about these two, and then I talked about my feedback, but just let me show you on this is that if you go, and this is a student view, when you go to grades, okay, when you click here, you will see my feedback. And then, like I said, I've had ongoing discussions with students about, some items in here. So I just want you to know that that's where you would see that feedback. And if you're wondering if you want more detail, reach out to me in Canvas, and then you can, I can have a chat, or and some of you were having chats in here, which is great as well. Honestly, I got some really good feedback about some stuff that I'm actually, let me stop that. I'm going to be changing. I always try to make courses better. I'm always trying to figure out how to improve. And in a semester like this, it's so quick. I don't know. It's always important. Okay, so this week is our first dev work. Okay, so let me just talk about it. And I put on week 2, I copied the dev requirements. I gave you the video I've produced in the past about the dev, but I just want you to have a concept, right? So the idea here is that you're going to come up with something you're going to code that's not what we've been doing in the Learn Togethers, and it's not the code that I've written, because the idea is that I'm providing you just examples. Now, I want you to know this. I do the dev work because I am extending my skill as well. Coding is like any other thing you're trying to learn. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And so you want to get good at something, just like professional athletes, right? They're practicing all the time. Well, this is the same for coding. The more you code, the better you're going to get at it. The more you can read code, the better you're going to get at it. So this week, you're coming up in this week, and in this week, I mean Thursday is the due date. Okay. Let me actually move to this and show you what I mean. So I'm going to move to the calendar. Now you can see that I'm recording this the week before. We're into week 3. And your first dev is here on the 26th. So I'm going to have signups for students to be able to sign up for sessions right up to the due date. And then I'll have other sessions that'll give you a week to do your code review. Okay. So you have to submit it by the morning I wake up on the 27th. It has to be there if you want those on time points. And you do for something like your dev work, because that is 20, we have 3 of them. It's worth 25%. Sorry, it's worth 50% of your grade. So each one is pretty big percentage. But let me show you now that you see that. So you have come see me here. And if you come see me before it's due, and I can look at the code, we could do, if you're ready, we'll do a code review, right? And then what can happen is if you miss something, you can update that code and turn it in by here. But once this date passes and you turned in the code, then these dates following that you'll see in my sign up sheet are really only intended for you to come in and do a code review, because the code has already been due at that time. So let me show you how this works actually let me come back here to week 3. Okay, because I've provided the link here to the actual schedule. Okay, so you put in, this is a Google Sheet, put in your name, and notice here I have review or assistance. So review would be like, I'm ready for the code review, Rio, right? Assistance, and I've been through this a couple times, and I've noticed that some students just want to have a conversation with me and maybe walk through some ideas and approaches and other things, which is totally fine. Okay, you're signing up for an assistance. Now, what you do want to know is if you sign up for assistance, you still need to do a code review. Okay, so you can see before the due date, here's the days: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Okay, so then the due date hits that night, and then that starting that next day, Friday, and then the following Monday through Thursday. So the last time you can do a code review with me is actually on Thursday at 1:30 to 2 p.m. So each session is about 30 minutes. They're in Zoom. So here's the Zoom information that's just a duplicate from the syllabus. So that's how it works. And sign up. If you don't make if you need something outside of this, the sooner you let me know, the more flexible I can be. So just check this out. The sooner the better. Sign up for sessions. If you're not sure, sign up for an assistance and we can talk about it. But the key is you need to be working on this code. Okay, so let's come back here. So that's the sign up and how it works. So what are you doing here? You are writing code, right? And you need to deliver to the code review. And by the way, code reviews are a part of the software development, web developer profession, to where you write code and then you come into a setting where some you have to walk through your code. And by the way, in this case, I actually show you, I want you to walk through code, and that's one of the requirements is to actually walk through your code using dev tools, because that's what we've been doing now at this point. I know it's week 3, but it's really like 6 weeks in on a regular 18-week course. So, and here's my 2 examples, but just to show you, right? So I'm going to right click, inspect, and I've gone over this, but it doesn't hurt to talk about it one more time. You go over to sources. Again, name it. I have a specific name I want you to give it. Now, my examples are out on public. You'll be placing yours in private. Okay. So here's my code. And then, like, if I wanted to set a breakpoint, part of what I would probably do is set it right here on display output. I'll look at this. It's been a while since I've seen this code. I'd do it right here, because this is kind of, and what I ended up doing was writing a function that would use a for loop to iterate over the number of times. And actually, I think I did a random of the number of games I wanted them to play. And then depending on what that number was determined to be, that random number between, in this case, 1 and 11. So, somewhere in there, then it did a for loop. But again, what you can do here is once you set that breakpoint, clicking here, you see the blue, you refresh, and you walk through, and you can see it's calling this function. And I've talked a little about this, but the most of what you need to know here is just how to walk through your code and describe it to me, what's going on. I mean, you can see it on the screen. So the better you're able to talk about that, the better your code review will be, right? So you have to write some code that meets my requirements. It does have it's going to go in the private repo inside of a new folder. You name it dev, and then inside of there, it's dev_0. You can put a dash if you want, and then place your code into there. And remember, you could run live server or just opening it on your local system. Do know that because these are in the private repos, that git hack link doesn't work, and that's okay, because what will happen is when you come in for code reviews, I will bring your code into my system and I will look at it before our session. Okay, so there are the requirements. They are my 2 code examples, and the thing I will tell you is I do have a style guide, and I actually considered using a style guide from who was it? I think it was Airbnb, but I decided, because it's so involved in their site, I decided to keep mine fairly simple. So, right, naming, you use let and const for your variables. Don't use var. If I see you using var, it's always a flag to me. The students are not writing code themselves, which you want this to be your code. And the best way you can describe code is if you write your own code. Also use some of the formatting selections in VS Code. This really helps. Let me see. I don't know if I have an example just because I use it all the time. But if I wanted to select, I say format selection. Oh, yeah. So there actually was a little bit of formatting because it does a standardized formatting for the amount of indentation, right? And some other things. Now, this is my code for my EV. This is the latest one I've done for my code example. Now, this one is, again, a bit more involved. It's actually a real world app for me where I can track my cost of charging my EV. Found recently somebody actually developed an app like this, so it was kind of interesting. Right, use camel case on your variables. You don't have to use camel case on your file names. That's not a good idea, or on your folder names, but on inside your code do. File names should be lowercase and shouldn't include spaces. Most of your code should be in a function. That's really, you should have very little code outside of a function. Most of your, I think I just saw an example of this in my RPS code. If I look down here, this is the only thing outside of a function. This is the only thing out in the global namespace. So, most of your code should go in a function that you can call, even if it's just calling it once. Most of it should be in a function. Okay, don't use jQuery or any of the libraries. Write in pure JS, right? Make sure you submit your commits. Oh, yeah, this is just talking about for lectures, right? And the Learn Together, we do the Git hacks. This probably isn't the best here just because you're not using Git hacks for this. You're running locally until you're ready to push your code. And then, like I said, I'll pull your code onto mine. And this is, I've been kind of harping this a little bit, is make sure you write code that tests all the branches of your logic code, right? So whatever your if blocks, make sure you have enough testing data to test all of those, and then make sure you know how to use Chrome DevTools. Now, one of the ways I handled, and I think I did this on both possibly, is I actually ran mine with the random number of games to play, and this was for rock, scissors, paper, and then the random number of, because I used a selection of selecting rock, scissors, or paper, and I actually used this for both the player 1 and player 2. What was player? See, I have to look at this now and figure out. Oh, yeah. So actually, this is passing in these variables. See, sometimes you just have to, even after you write code, you have to figure out what it is that you did and why you did it. So, but you do need to, you can use my display on page function like we've been using. I'm just seeing where it's at in this code real quick. There it is, display on page. This is really no different than what we've already been doing. So you just need it to output to the page. Okay, so I know this is a lot, okay? And I know this class is moving very quickly. And we're on week 3. I need to remind folks it's really week 6 of a regular semester class. Okay, it's a really important week. So this is going to be, of course, your attendance post. What would I like you to tell me here? Well, what I'd like you to tell me is, what do you feel? How can you set yourself up for success here, right? What's your goal? Or maybe what's your strategy for doing this? I wouldn't wait until this. I mean, I say this, but I definitely say this for this item. The sooner you start thinking about this, the more time you give it, the better your code is going to be reflective of something you're interested in, and it'll also be better reflective of your understanding of JavaScript. And it's not that I'm telling you have to write code like mine, right? My knowledge of JavaScript is better than it was when I did rock, scissors, paper. And my EV code, right? I'm looking forward to doing my next one to be, because you're constantly improving, right? This is kind of the idea, is that we're constantly improving our skill base. So reply with any questions, of course, or anything you want to know about the code review, right? Let me just tell you how you come into the code review. We have a conversation. Maybe I will tell you I've run your code. right? And then I say, okay, share your screen on your side. So doing a little test on Zoom to make sure, you're ready to go. On the Mac side, you do have to install something. So if you're on a Mac, make sure you have done screen share before. If not, come into an office hour. Let's make sure we have you, because trying to do that while you're setting up for a code review can just create more stress than any of us need. So then I'll have you walk through your code. I'll tell you, or I'll say, okay, set a breakpoint, and I'll tell you the breakpoint as far as not what line, but where you would set it in the process of your code executing. That's why you want to know how your code is running. So when I say stop it at this particular point, not in the code, but in its execution, you want to understand that. That's how I look at that. And then, of course, it's important you're bringing me code that works. Okay. And then you and I can have a conversation about code, because that's what a code review is, to actually have a conversation. So if the first time you're having that conversation with me is during a code review, that's fine. But if you want to help yourself feel less nervous, come talk to me before. So understanding the schedule, understanding how to sign up, understanding what's going to happen. Hopefully this clarifies anything. But if it doesn't, ask me. All right. Have a good one.